MAGA world is having a complete meltdown over Donald Trump being convicted in New York, and I'm loving every second of it. It seems like a lot of Trump supporters were caught off guard by the quick conviction of their hero. Every brave Trump defender is now coming up with ideas on how they can help save their dear leader. Most of their ideas are pathetic and useless, but House Speaker Mike Johnson has raised some eyebrows with a recent Fox News interview where he appeared to accidentally give away the GOP's game plan for how to make sure Trump avoids any punishment. And he may have gotten some people into big trouble in the process. Wait until you hear what this guy said. Donald Trump has already made it clear that he will be appealing his guilty verdict. That means a New York State appeals court will hear his case over the course of months and possibly years. In the meantime, he'll be sentenced by Judge Juan Merchan on July 11th, just days before the Republican National Convention. Judge Merchan probably isn't too interested in helping Trump out with a light sentence after Trump's conduct during the trial that included attacks on the judge and his family. I'm not getting my hopes up that Trump will go to prison, but I'll settle for home confinement and picking up trash along the highway. Trump and his surrogates seem quite optimistic that he'll win his appeal. Looking at the New York State Appeals Court, I'm not too sure about that one. Good luck, though. However, Speaker Mike Johnson has a different plan. He was on Fox and Friends this morning where he accidentally spilled the beans on what the Republicans plan on doing.
Do you think that the Supreme Court has a duty to step in since this will impact, the election? I know we want to act like he's just a normal guy, but he's a leading presidential candidate. The voters should know what's going to happen here. So what do you see playing out in the legal system?
Well, there's a lot of developments yet to come, but I do believe the Supreme Court should step in. Obviously, this is totally unprecedented, and it's dangerous to our system. I mean, we've all discussed this before, and you all talk about it all the time. This is diminishing the American people's faith in our system of justice itself. And to maintain a republic, you have to have that. People have to believe that justice is fair, that there's equal justice under law. They don't see that right now. And I think that the justices on the court, I know many of them personally, I think they're deeply concerned about that as we are. So I think they'll set this straight, but it's going to take a while. You're right. The process takes a while to play out.
It's wild how Republicans are demanding that the Supreme Court get involved right away and do something. The GOP wants to skip the entire appeals process that anyone else would have to go through and get right to the Supreme Court fixing it now. I'm sure the Supreme Court appreciates Mike Johnson putting pressure on them when they aren't even involved right now. I can only imagine how many MAGA lunatics out there are mad at the Supreme Court for not doing something already. And what's with the line about knowing the justices personally and that they're deeply upset about this? Is Mike Johnson in contact with Supreme Court justices about this case? That sounds horrifically inappropriate. And have any Supreme Court justices expressed their feelings to him about this case? That would also be outrageous, since the Supreme Court isn't supposed to be getting political or comment on random cases. But what bothers me the most about Mike Johnson's statement on Fox News is him saying the verdict diminishes the public's faith in our justice system. I believe the exact opposite has happened. I'm seeing so many people celebrating that the system finally worked and Trump has been held accountable. The only reason anyone disagrees with this verdict is because they're told to be outraged about it by right-wing media and influencers. This completely ignores the fact that a jury of 12 random people came together to hear all the evidence and unanimously ruled beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump was guilty. And yet, almost none of the people mad about this conviction have any understanding of the case, nor were they privy to any of the evidence that the jury considered. The Republican Party has recklessly undermined public trust in our judicial system in order to protect a deeply flawed con man who has taken over their party. Shame on them. And by the way, this is the same justice system that is prosecuting the sitting president's son in 2 cases that could send him to prison for 20 years. In what world would that happen if the justice system was simply a tool of the Biden administration? Mike Johnson and all these MAGA Republicans need to relax and go through the stages of grief without trying to undermine our entire justice system. Leave the Supreme Court alone and stop giving them ideas. It's time to accept that Donald Trump is a convicted felon and that no one is above the law in America.